Do you believe that a country capable of sending astronauts into space to explore the moon is powerless to build a roof over its own citizens? That's not the story of some distant country. That is the reality of America in 2025, where more than 2/3 of a million Americans are living without homes. And this number shows no signs of stopping. You might find them sleeping on the streets in the scorching heat of Arizona, sheltering under dark tunnels in Las Vegas, or huddled by the freezing docks in New York. They are no different from you and me, once teachers, veterans, the elderly, workers. But now, even a roof over their heads has become a luxury for them. In today's documentary, we will take you through the 10 worst states for homelessness in the US in 2025 to expose the dark truth that the American dream, once built by ordinary people, is now slipping away, one roof at a time. As usual, this is not a pessimistic warning, but a reflective perspective from various sources, aimed at helping the community understand better and prepare proactively. Are you ready to step into the hidden corners behind the glamorous facades of the most bustling and luxurious cities in America? Let's get started right away. From the perspective of the whole world, Hawaii has always been a tropical paradise with white sandy beaches, golden sunshine, gentle waves, and an invitation to relaxation. But behind those dazzling travel films lies a truth that few dare to face. Hawaii currently has the third highest rate of homelessness in the US, and the situation is getting worse. The very place once considered a paradise vacation spot for tens of millions around the world has turned into a hell for thousands of locals who have been pushed onto the streets with nowhere to go. What makes Hawaii heartbreaking is not the cold statistics, but the ruthless contradiction between the eternal beauty of paradise and the lives being eroded daily in hell. If you turn your gaze just beyond the luxurious resorts with their vibrant bougainvillea fences, the scene you see will make you question your own eyes. Hundreds of homeless tents sprout on the sidewalks like weeds after the rain, and the people walk around like zombies with eyes that no longer hold any hope for life. Everything is like a drop of ink accidentally smudged on the beautiful painting of Hawaii. Since when has a full-time worker been unable to afford a one-bedroom apartment? Since when did a veteran who once dedicated their youth to the country now have to struggle to survive like invisible beings in their own homeland? Perhaps you yourself have gradually come to understand where the reason originates. That's right. The judgment of spending costs.
And it's just prices nowadays are ridiculous, and we just can't afford at least working 2 jobs and trying to keep up with everything nowadays.
The cost of living index in Hawaii, according to statistics, is nearly double the national average, especially with the housing price crisis. Just on the island of Oahu, the average price of a house increased from $789,000 to $1.15 million in 3 years. And if you want to rent, be prepared to spend 60% or even all of your meager salary just to secure a roof over your head in this expensive state. While everything is skyrocketing, the minimum wage remains stagnant. You need to do 2, even 3 jobs at the same time to keep up with the costs. The apartments that were once homes to locals have now become speculative assets for investors from the mainland or abroad. Somehow, those who have lived here for decades are being kicked out of paradise to make way for tourists coming and going. It hurts even more when the ones most affected are the native Hawaiians. For them, this is not just about rent. This is a story of loss, losing their homeland, losing cultural roots, losing the dignity that was once the pride of the Polynesian people. Many people choose to live in the forest, along the beach, or anywhere that is least disturbed. But they never wanted to choose such a life. They simply had no other choice when the welfare system had no room, and the promises to resolve the crisis from the government had become empty promises after being forgotten too many times. Ironically, many elderly people spent their entire lives dreaming of one day living and retiring in Hawaii. But those who were born and have been attached to this land are slowly fading away in silence. They have no ticket to return to the mainland, nor the strength to hope for a permanent refuge. They only have the sea, the sky, and the faded memories of a golden era of the American dream. This paradise is still beautiful, But when that beauty becomes a luxury that even the locals cannot touch, is it still a dream destination? And if even a place that was once a symbol of peace can no longer provide a home for its people, what lies ahead for the American dream? Have you ever heard of Skid Row in Los Angeles? A neighborhood right in the heart of the opulent Hollywood, where people live crammed into tattered tents amidst trash and despair. There are no gates separating Skid Row from the rest of the city, but it is almost like another world, where the concept of living is reduced to just existing. It's worth mentioning that Skid Row is not the only case. It is just one of the hundreds of red zones of the homelessness crisis that is engulfing the wealthiest state in America, California. California, with symbols like Hollywood, Silicon Valley, Beverly Hills, has long been a model of the modern American dream. It once promised a bright future for those who dared to dream big and work hard. But in 2025, that dream turned into a nightmare for tens of thousands of people living without homes in the most glamorous cities of the country. The homelessness crisis in California has completely spiraled out of control. You can walk from a billion-dollar company headquarters to a tent encampment in just a few minutes. The wealth gap here is no longer a distance or an abstract concept. It is clearly present right before our eyes, almost tangible. While tech companies report record revenues, right beneath them are engineers who once worked in the industry but lost their jobs due to layoffs, couldn't cope with the cost of living, and were pushed out onto the streets after just a few months of unemployment. The cost of renting in San Francisco, Los Angeles, or San Jose has exceeded the tolerance level of the middle class. A one-bedroom apartment can cost over $3,000 a month, a price that even those with stable jobs struggle to manage. And for those with mental health issues and less luck, that is a sentence that pushes them straight onto the streets. The homeless in California are no longer a pitiful minority. They are former teachers, delivery drivers, and healthcare workers who were once on the front lines of the pandemic. They once had a home, a job, and health insurance. The only difference between them and the rest, sometimes, is just a job loss, an unexpected medical bill, or an unaffordable rent increase. They don't fall too far, just slipping out of the life we live by half a step. In California today, no one is truly immune to the possibility of becoming homeless. You can clearly feel the despair on the faces of the elderly lying along the sidewalks of Sunset Boulevard, amidst the sound of car horns and neon lights. A woman who used to be a public library employee now sits counting her spare change to buy a sandwich to stave off hunger. A man who once served in the armed forces now clutches a backpack with a few tattered, yellowed certificates. California is still beautiful. Beautiful in a magnificent, overwhelming, enchanting way. But that very beauty is causing people to forget that there are individuals who are gradually being erased from sight, from policy, from the heart of society. They are the cracks in the wall of prosperity, the unanswered questions in a system that prioritizes wealth over people. If a wealthy place like California cannot take care of its most vulnerable residents, then can any other place do it? Or is this the future of all of America? There is something bitter about mentioning New York, once a symbol of hope, immigration, and new beginnings, but now a place where thousands live without homes, without futures, and without faith. New York is no longer a place where people come to dream. For many people, it has become a place where dreams have gradually crumbled, quietly and alone. In the subway station, homeless people sleep huddled between the old concrete pillars. In the darkness of Manhattan's neighborhoods, hundreds of people line up waiting for a meal from a charity kitchen. Notably, among the long line of people waiting, there are also veterans and members of the middle class. The rent prices in New York have far exceeded the affordability of most working-class people. In 2025, the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in Manhattan exceeded $5,264 per month, while in Brooklyn, the figure had also reached around $3,800. The apartments that once housed immigrant worker families are now being sold for over $500,000, sometimes even more, a price that makes even newly graduated engineers or doctors hesitate. And while the real estate market continues to boom, the temporary shelters are overcrowded, lacking, and many places do not even meet basic living conditions. New York is not short on money. There is no shortage of charitable organizations, but it lacks one core thing: a strong political will to put people before profit. How many more vacant lots will be left abandoned while thousands of people are homeless? How many vacant apartments are being invested in while there are still families and children sleeping in cars? We once thought that New York was a place where everyone had opportunities. But if even the opportunity to have a roof over one's head is no longer available, can we still call this place the city that never sleeps? Or is it a city where thousands of people have to stay awake because they don't know where to sleep? And if that is the future of New York, then how many more cities will follow in the footsteps of abandoning the most vulnerable people? There are places where kindness used to be an inseparable part of the community's identity. Oregon is one of those places. With its vast forests, the liberal city of Portland, and its warm-hearted people, this state was once seen as a model of progress. A place where compassion, social justice, and community spirit were valued. But in 2025, those once proud values are being challenged by the harsh reality of a homelessness crisis, silently ravaging the heart of Oregon. In Portland, homelessness has become so prevalent that it has almost become a part of the urban landscape. According to the latest data, nearly 22,875 people in this state are living without a fixed shelter. Among them, it is alarming that about 20% of the current homeless population are 55 years old or older. You can drive through downtown Portland and immediately see what's happening. The parks that used to be places where people practiced yoga in the early morning and children played in the late afternoon are now filled with tents, carts, and the weary eyes of the homeless. The streets that were once shaded by trees are now filled with untold stories. Stories of job loss, illness, breakdown, and abandonment from a system that is running low on both budget and compassion. What makes Oregon different is not the scale of the crisis, but the way that crisis has gradually become a new normal. And in that silence, the homeless have become a living symbol of collective helplessness, like a wound that is hard to heal. Is a society that once chose compassion strong enough to follow through with that choice? Or will there come a time when even the kindest people turn away because they are too exhausted to care? Florida, a name that evokes images of golden sandy beaches, a peaceful retirement life, and sun-drenched neighborhoods with palm trees swaying in the breeze. But in another dark corner, where the sunlight cannot reach, there are thousands of homeless people, many of whom are elderly, struggling to survive amidst harsh regulations and a growing indifference that is becoming the norm. Florida is a dream destination for wealthy retirees, while more than 31,462 people are pushed onto the streets, living homeless as if they had never contributed to building this society. The state government has repeatedly implemented policies criminalizing homelessness, banning sleeping in public places, fining panhandlers, and even arresting those who set up tents to escape the sun on the roadside. Those measures, called maintaining the scenery, actually only make the poor disappear from the sight of tourists without addressing the core issue. People without homes still don't have homes. They just have to live more secretly, avoid and be more isolated within their own community. Florida is still a place of sunshine, of festivals, of beautiful postcards. But in the shadows of that golden sunshine are people who are gradually being pushed out of the circle of existence. When a society prioritizes image over dignity, how many more people will be forced to live in the shadows to keep the picture out there looking perfect? Texas, a symbol of vastness, pride, and the self-made spirit that is quintessentially American. A state praised for its economic growth rate, for attracting investment, for being a place where every dream can start anew. But amidst the newly built skyscrapers and the upscale residential areas springing up every day, there are thousands of people sleeping under bridges, in cars, or in the barren fields. They are living proof of an increasingly clear paradox. Texas is growing, but not everyone has a place in that growth. In Austin, a city once called the creative capital of America, homeless encampments are appearing everywhere. An apartment that used to cost $900 a month is now over $1,500. People working as drivers, waitstaff, and in healthcare no longer have the means to rent homes near their workplaces. They have to choose between living far away and incurring additional travel costs, or sleeping temporarily in their cars, on benches, or in vacant lots. But Texas is not just Austin. In Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, the story is similar. The cities are developing rapidly, attracting people from all over to settle down, but at the same time, they are pushing low-income individuals out of the growth cycle. And when they no longer have a place to stay, the state does not welcome them with open arms, but often chooses to turn a blind eye or completely push them out of the social circle. Under the guise of maintaining public order, many cities in Texas have enacted regulations banning tent setups, prohibiting sleeping in parks, and violently dispersing homeless camps. But there is no alternative housing. There is no clear support plan. They are simply pushed away, into some hidden corner, out of sight of residents and the beauty of the urban landscape. Texas prides itself on freedom, but it lacks sufficient social housing programs for those who need it most. Texas says that everyone has a chance, but it leaves thousands of the elderly, the sick, and those who were once family breadwinners on the sidelines without any protective policies. Have we become so enamored with growth that we've forgotten that a society is judged not by the number of new buildings it erects, but by how it treats its most vulnerable? Texas is still a land of faith and hope for many, but is prosperity still something to be proud of if the price to pay is the quiet disappearance of those who once contributed to its creation? When people think of Pennsylvania, they often think of history. The place where the Declaration of Independence was signed, once the industrial heart of America, where hard-working families contributed to the backbone of the nation's economy. But in 2025, amidst the echoes of its former glory, Pennsylvania is facing a harsh reality. The very people who built this state are gradually being forgotten, sleeping aimlessly in train stations, huddling under the awnings of old markets, and living quietly in the indifference of the very system they once trusted. In Philadelphia, the largest city in the state, 30th Street Station is no longer just a place where people come and go. It has become a temporary shelter for hundreds of homeless people. The corridors that once echoed with the sounds of luggage wheels and train announcements are now interwoven with the sounds of dry coughs, anxious whispers, the voices of those who have nowhere else to go. What makes the homelessness situation in Pennsylvania particularly distressing is not just the number of people affected, but the chilling indifference of those around them. There are no prominent tent cities like in California or Oregon. Here, people are scattered, living temporarily behind broken doors in abandoned houses or crowded in bus stops all night in the cold. The temporary shelters are always overcrowded. Support programs lack personnel, funding, and even long-term vision. Policies often react slowly, sometimes only superficially. Meanwhile, time does not wait. A colder than usual winter can force dozens of people living outdoors to struggle to hold on to their last bit of warmth. And then, everything continues as if nothing ever happened. Pennsylvania, with its rich history and spirit of labor, should be a place that honors the contributions of its people. But now, it is becoming a testament to a harsh reality. No one is guaranteed to be remembered, even if they have worked their entire lives for a city. Can a society take pride in its glorious past when its present allows the elderly and the frail to gradually fade into oblivion? Washington, a name that evokes the lush green pine forests, the fog enveloping the city of Seattle, the cozy coffee shops, and the vibrant spirit of technological innovation. This is the birthplace of giant corporations, where a single idea in a garage can become a $100 billion empire. But behind the glamour of technology and prosperity lies an increasingly severe homelessness crisis, spreading from the city center to the outskirts, like a deepening crack in the heart of the state. In Seattle, once a symbol of liberalism and sustainable development, rows of tents have sprung up along the highways, beneath overpasses, right in front of the gates of high-end office buildings. On the streets that were once shaded by trees, it's now not uncommon to see the image of a man wrapped in a thin blanket, lying motionless on the rain-soaked sidewalk, or a woman tightly holding a child, huddled against the cold wall of Walmart. This is not a scene from a movie. This is the reality of a state once admired for its humanity and innovation. The government once tried to cope, from building more affordable housing, improving mental health support centers, to increasing the number of social workers. But all efforts have failed to keep pace with the rate of collapse of lives. Washington was once the birthplace of ideas that changed the world. But now, that very state cannot find a way to protect the most vulnerable people in its community. This state has not lost all hope. But does a place that once led in technology and innovation still have the courage to find ways for people to care for each other? Or will everything continue to develop except for compassion? Nevada, where vibrant dreams are illuminated each night under the neon lights of Las Vegas. This city never sleeps. It welcomes millions of tourists each year with its glamorous casinos, luxurious hotels, and top-notch shows. But if you step just a few blocks off the main boulevard, that dream quickly fades away, giving way to a stark reality of an underground world, literally, of people who have lost everything, including the right to be seen and remembered. Right beneath Las Vegas, there is a flood control tunnel system over 300 miles long. There, it's not flowing water, but a place where over 1,500 homeless people live in darkness, in dampness and heavy mildew, among rats and sewage. They set up makeshift beds with wooden planks, pull electrical wires from streetlight poles, and survive on donated food and what remains after the casino lights. That is the second Las Vegas, a city of darkness right beneath the city of light. Nevada is not a poor state. Las Vegas generates billions of dollars each year from the entertainment industry. But behind those dazzling lights lies an undeniable divide. Nowhere else in America is the contrast so stark as here. Above, people drop thousands of dollars into slot machines in just a few minutes. Below, a man splits a pack of breadcrumbs with his beloved dog. Nevada is a land of opportunity for some people, but it is also a deep pit of despair for many others. How many lights? How much music will still resonate? If right beneath our feet are people increasingly forgotten by a dream they once believed was real. In the heart of the sun-scorched desert of the southwestern United States, Arizona appears as a harsh painting, where the sun shines relentlessly and the heat can extinguish a life in just a few hours without water, shade, or shelter. However, under those conditions, more than 14,000 people, including the elderly, veterans, women, and children, still have to live on the streets. Phoenix, the capital of Arizona, is currently one of the cities with the fastest growing homeless population in the United States. In just a few years, the streets have turned into permanent temporary camps where people lay down tarps, set up tents, and live together in the most minimal conditions. No clean water, no bathroom, no place to escape the heat. And when the outdoor temperature exceeds 110 degrees Fahrenheit, a number that is no longer unusual in Arizona, the so-called makeshift shelters are nothing more than human ovens. Unlike large cities with many charitable organizations and support networks, many areas in Arizona, especially the outskirts or suburbs, have almost no solutions. People just survive, hoping for each day. A few bottles of ice water distributed for free in the summer cannot replace an air-conditioned room. A charity meal cannot replace the feeling of safety when closing the door behind you. In that scorching heat, the only thing that grows cold is the heart of a society becoming accustomed to overlooking others. What could be more fundamental than the right to live under one roof in America, where it was once promised that no one would be left behind? A country built from dreams, from the belief that with effort, everyone deserves a full, warm, and safe life. But the journey through 10 states recently was a painful wake-up call that the American dream is cracking, with pieces falling onto sidewalks, in train stations, under overpasses, and even underground. Behind each tent is an untold story. Behind every lost gaze is a spreading fear. Will I be the next one? And that is no longer a distant fear, because when housing becomes a privilege rather than a basic right, the line between stability and homelessness is more fragile than ever. If even a roof over one's head is no longer something that America can guarantee for its people, then what dream are we really preserving? And how much longer before that dream itself becomes homeless? What do you think about the homeless hell of those 10 worst states? Please share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel and stay updated with our latest videos. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video. Please note, the information in the video is compiled from public and reliable sources, aimed at analysis and providing a reference perspective. The video is not intended to incite, criticize individuals, or provide financial or legal advice. Viewers should consider additional information before making a decision.